BandCave. We are here. How you doing, folks? My name is Nick Lawrence. Welcome to the BandCave podcast. We have Brinson Strickland in studio today, along with Charlie Strickland. Brinson's visiting from Nashville, Tennessee, and boy, do we have a lot of things to talk about.
Yes, we do.
With the craziness that's going on with the coronavirus, and also some stuff like the tornadoes and stuff that have hit. That was 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And I've got a list of things here, and I'm just happy that you're here today, and we're going to be able to get a lot of great info from you. And as you guys know out there listening, the Band Cave, we talk about stuff in the music business, in the band business in particular, but we sometimes veer off the lane a little bit and talk about all kinds of things. But haven't done this in a few weeks, so I'm kind of losing my mind a little bit.
Going to blow the rust off a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
Well, as you mentioned, it has definitely been an interesting time in Nashville the last few weeks. We started with the tornado 2 weeks ago. I was actually in Orlando the Monday night before the tornado happened, and we were producing an event for the Arnold Palmer Invitational Golf Tournament, and so I go to bed, turn the phone on silent, get up at 7 a.m. Eastern the next morning and I'm going to brush my teeth, and I look down and I had 38 text messages overnight, and I'm thinking, well, it's probably not great news. Everybody's not excited about telling me good news.
Yeah, exactly.
I got my glasses and look. The first thing I see is a text from Craig Dunn, one of our managers, saying, there was a tornado that came through Nashville last night. You need to know. And it was East Nashville, where our office is. It was sort of the epicenter of direct hits.
Yeah.
And there was a picture from like a block and a half up of what was left of our building. And two of our managers were in East Nashville, may or may not have been drunk in bars when it happened and never even knew that it happened until they came out and there was nothing left standing around them. So they stumbled their way over to got as close as they could to our office and took pictures. So needless to say, I got on a plane and came home as quickly as I could, and some of the staff had gotten over there, and it was mayhem. It was amazing the randomness of tornadoes, because one building is standing, and then the next building it just doesn't exist anymore, and then two buildings over across the street, a lawn chair isn't blown over, and then literally around the corner. Clark Mosley, who's looking handsome behind your console over there, he had just been in Nashville and just seen everything. There was a roof of a huge building. It's probably 50,000 pounds that had blown off, sheared off, and blew through two other houses. It's just amazing.
So did it totally mess up y'all's building? I mean, did it just do damage like windows and stuff like that, or did it this is a major?
Yeah,
overall?
it was a major thing. On the surface, we looked more fortunate than others because where our office is, again, at East Nashville, is kind of a hipster area of Nashville. It's really cool, very much community driven, but a lot of residential mixed with commercial. So our building is a really neat place. Charlie's been in it several times. It's a 100-year-old boarding house.
Really?
High ceilings and exposed brick. And I mean, the fact that it was standing at all was amazing. But of course, all windows were blown out. The roof had been lifted up and moved over a foot. The floor had dropped down 2 inches, interior stairwells pulled apart. So it was standing, but that is about the best you can say for it.
God,
it was inhabitable. But, one thing interesting worth mentioning is and this sounds, Pollyanna maybe a little bit, but the community outreach in Nashville is unlike anything I'd ever seen. So
really?
The morning after it happened, because it happened like 1 a.m., there were roving bands of hundreds of people, volunteers from all over town showed up with gloves and chainsaws and rakes and shovels, and just were going block by block, clearing everything they could. We, a couple of days later, had a short window to get everything out of our office, and there was, police blockades everywhere, so we sort of had to cross the blockades, and we were able to find a moving company, and two of our people put out on their social media feeds that we're going to be moving out at 7 a.m. the next morning. Anybody that could help would be great, because we had a short window. So I showed up at 7:05, and there were probably 30 people that I only marginally knew, from interns, past interns, agents, attorneys, you name it, over there, packing us up and moving us out. And it was overwhelming, and it was like that.
That's really
that's
good,
not just
though.
for us; that's for everybody.
I didn't realize that there was that much help. I mean, because I've never had to go through anything like that, living in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I told Brinson when it happened. He called me and was telling me the story. And I said, you fulfilled a lifelong dream because somehow you just became George Bailey, and It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah. Exactly.
But unfortunately, I played the story in reverse. So the happy ending happened first.
Yeah.
And then a week later, we went to the middle part where his business collapses and everything goes away.
God.
Enter the coronavirus.
Well, that's what I was about to get to. So all this nonsense, right? The tornadoes, and then boom, you're hit. We've talked about this prior, but Nashville touring, entertainment. That's the first thing that goes when something like this happens. And this kind of, it's just, in my lifetime, I guess you guys too, we've never really seen anything like this.
9/11 had a similar chilling effect, I
Yeah.
would guess, on entertainment.
Yeah.
It lasted for a very long time.
yeah,
for you.
it did.
I just, I don't know how long. What do you think? How long is this going to go? You think where people can't really go anywhere?
Where we sit. I mean, listen, who knows where we sit mid-March right now? The thinking, and there's a task force of the heads of all the major agencies: William Morris, CAA, UTA, APA, all the heads of those, in conjunction with the heads of Live Nation, AEG. The people that really control the touring industry, that actually have a pipeline into the White House or CDC, or getting real-time information. The optimistic view is business is done through May. Charlie and I were talking 2 days ago. I said, if we're back in business in May, I'm going to be thrilled. Today, if we're back in business in June, I'm going to be thrilled.
Oh my gosh.
And it's the trickle-down effect is what we've been discussing the last couple of days. People don't think about, the artists, but then you have the band members, the bus drivers, the merch companies, the venues, the ticket takers, the ushers, the concession people. It's...
And I forget, I'm not, I'm always on the other side. I'm just get up on stage and play. I forget everything that's involved to get everything off the ground.
Yeah.
And everybody's affected. Once I heard that they were doing that the NBA shut down, that was the first thing that I knew. I was like, oh, this is kind of serious. Mm-hmm. No more games. I knew right then that we were doomed as artists.
Yeah. But here, let me give you the positive spin on it. While our industry is obviously the most expendable thing in the world, right? It's not a necessity fiscally, but emotionally it is a necessity. And especially country music, we thrive in times of war because it's comfort food, and rightly so. And it will always be essential to people to have that to go to. And once the virus is contained to some extent, one thing before this, there was hysteria the last few years in the industry about streaming, and nobody sells records anymore. And but what is never going to change is the live music experience, and that is the last great communal experience, and that will never be replaced, no matter what you do. So as soon as we get through this, and we will, guess what? People are going to be dying to get out and hear live music and have a cocktail with somebody and dance.
I thought of that. This is kind of we're all freaking out right now because it's happening right now, and it just kind of has started. But I think this is kind of like a reset button, for a lot of people in so many different ways, but especially for music. Like the other day I'm thinking, well, I guess I'm going to have a couple months off. I just write some songs.
Yeah, it's a good time.
So, I don't know any other way to put it, but anyhow, it is bad. And I'm kind of glad that it's worked out this way because you were able to come hang out with us today in the BandCave.
I'm happy to be here. And it's funny you should mention that about writing songs because watch your toes. I'm about to drop some names, but this morning, Clint Black's one of our artists, and he's the greatest, and Steve Warner also, and they're great friends and songwriters, and they've written huge hits together, and they're writing today and tomorrow. I was like, well, why not? And our conversation was, over the next few weeks with everybody off the road, there's going to be a lot of great songs written and a lot of babies made.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
a lot of babies made
time in the industry.
That is true.
Can you go back to a second about the communal experience of live music, especially in this culture? Has it taken the place of what church used to be for some people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think of any kind of communal or social gathering, live music is a center, and oddly enough, grocery stores are a center of cultural experience. And those are things that can't be replaced. And even right now, the hysteria with people going and forming lines at grocery stores. It's like Chuck, you and I were talking about a couple of days ago. I read an interesting survey or interview with an epidemic psychologist, for lack of a better term, said the reason there's a run on toilet paper, that's a random thing.
I don't get that.
You know what? He said, here's what it is. Somebody did it early on, and it's something that you can control. So this is out of control. What can I do? Hell, I'll go buy toilet paper. Whatever. And the toilet paper manufacturers are going, this is fantastic. There's plenty of toilet paper. You know, there's no interruption in the supply line. But we'll get it there.
I didn't know if there was an explanation. I was trying to figure that out the other day when I'm watching the news. I'm thinking, why all the toilet paper?
It's a thing you can control in a time that feels out of control. And that's it.
And I thought it was just toilet paper, but now, of course, I went to the store a couple days ago, and there's really nothing. I mean, it's like wiped out. You know, there's no water.
Right.
There's no toilet paper. Right there, that's kind of a big deal, I guess. But even the freezers. I mean, people are just kind of. They're not saying you can't go to the store.
Right.
They're just. I don't know. I don't get that.
Brinson's daughter's in Seattle, so it hit there really before anywhere else. And you said now it's kind of normalized after a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. So people are still staying in and quarantining themselves a little, but the hysteria is past, and now people see how to live normally. So if you need to go to the store and get hand sanitizer, there's hand sanitizer. There's toilet paper. It takes a minute, and it'll level out.
You would think the hand sanitizer would be sold out before the toilet paper. But
that's true.
Who knows?
But my wife was in Seattle visiting our daughter last week, and she was flying out of the Seattle airport. And when she landed, I saw on the counter she had all these bottles of hand sanitizer. And I said, "Where'd you get that?" She said, "Seattle Airport. It's all back there. If you can buy it in the airport, you can buy it anywhere in the city." So it'll pass.
For those of you viewers just tuning in, we are here in the BandCave podcast today. We've got Mr. Brinson Strickland from Nashville visiting. He is president of Collective Artist Management, over 20 years in the business, and also a player too. You know, a gigging musician, not just on the management side. You did that for a long time. Yeah. I know the other night we were watching some old videos of you playing with Brian White on the David Letterman show and stuff. That's cool. You know,
it seemed like a lifetime ago. You know, I've always told Charlie though that was a great time, and there was never becoming a musician was not a plan. It just happened, and once it started, once I moved to Nashville and saw how many great players are in town, that's when I determined perhaps I'm better suited for management.
Yeah.
So kind of ended up
my
going
first
that
experience
way.
in Nashville. Just a quick little story. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I was 17 years old. I was with Tony and Brenda. Tony had taken me, and oh wow, I forget what guitar shop it was. There's one there on the main drag, and it's just
Gruen's.
Yes.
Yeah, George Gruen.
And I walk in, and I'm godly. It's like I might as well have walked into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I was just floored. Yeah. And I see this bum-looking guy walk in. Here we go. And he looked like he just crawled out from the bridge, man. I mean, he looked terrible. And I'm over there, dinking around. And he grabbed this guitar and just blew me away. And I said, man, should I be doing this anymore? I mean, that's when I knew, he was one of the best guitar players I ever heard. I mean, just noodling. And I'm going, that's when I knew, this is a different planet over here compared to South Texas.
A lot of people listen to this thing are music queers, like us. So Brinson was talking about playing on Letterman. Tell them the story about the studio on Letterman.
So Letterman believes a warm audience is a complacent audience. Mm-hmm. So he kept the studio at 54 degrees. And I mean, freezing. And if you go back and look at old shows, you see the guests come out and they make jokes about it. That actors or comedians, they're bundled up wearing jackets and gloves. So when you play on the show right before, when you're in commercial break, before you go on, the stage managers walk around with hand warmer packs like you take when you freaking go hunting, handing them out so your hands and fingers
That cold?
That cold. Yeah, it's that cold. Well, whatever. I mean, he's an odd guy. You know, you couldn't.
Obviously.
You weren't.
54 degrees.
If you did the Jay Leno show, Jay comes out while you're, during the day while you're sound checking, he comes up to your dressing room and hangs out. You can go sit behind his desk during the day and take pictures and do whatever you want. He didn't care, and he's funny. Letterman, who I love Letterman, he's my favorite host of all times, but it's literally, if you see Dave, don't look at him, don't stare at him, please don't approach him. And where the band green room was, for some reason it had sliding glass doors. It never made sense to me, but it was in between, the band green room was in between Dave's office, which was upstairs. You had to come down and then go to the stage. And so when you were sitting in the green room, when you saw the lights in the hallway go out, that meant Dave was coming down the hall and please don't look at me. It was bizarre.
That's so weird. So literally, he just doesn't like it, or that's just like they think that's how he thinks.
He's so socially awkward that it's not that he's an. Can we cuss on this?
Of course.
It's not that he's an asshole. It's just he's just so awkward. And I guess arguably maybe he's one of the most famous people in the world at any given point in time. So it was definitely a different experience than Leno, because it was, Jay's like, hey, I'm just, I'm here and happy.
Maybe looking back, maybe that's why he didn't back in the, I guess I'm so young. I mean, when this happened, it was in the 80s, I guess, when he was going to go to NBC.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Maybe they're like, he's just kind of weird. We'll get someone else. We'll get this no-name Jay Leno.
Well,
those guys on CBS or something.
They just didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. That's what I really think.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to meet David Letterman. I don't know if that's good or bad.
You too, probably at some time.
You too. You're on the show.
Yep. Did a show 3 times. Never met him.
Well, I mean, if Charlie, and you're here too. This is great. If I'd like to hear. Y'all been doing this. Obviously, grew up together, your brothers and everything. I'd like to know, like, what got y'all into music when you were a kid? Was it your dad? Was it just something y'all did? Was it?
No, it was clearly hee-haw. The guy said,
yeah.
Okay. Was it?
That was important. It was an important thing having hee-haw. There was nowhere to go for music. Hee-haw in Austin city limits. Mm-hmm. And, as corny as that shit was, that's the only place you could kind of see people play.
Yeah.
Like, we loved it. We'd wait to go somewhere on Saturday till after hee-haw was over.
Really?
I'm not kidding. That sounds corny, but it's really true.
Yeah.
And as far as playing, y'all just one day decided to buy some instruments, or
our dad played, our uncle played, our mom could sing and play the piano. So we were around it. But it was never serious.
Yeah.
And we just took it to a different place.
Y'all definitely did. That's really cool. Well, I've got a ton of questions here. I don't know if we need to do all of them, but there's.
I got no place to be for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, me too. So.
I got time.
Well said. But for those of you just tuning in, or if you watching, this is Brinson in here today. Brinson Strickland. I have Charlie, his brother, Charlie Strickland, here with us today. We're talking about a million things, but mainly about obviously the music business and how this coronavirus has affected us. And like we mentioned earlier, the Nashville things are kind of crazy out there right now. But just to give y'all some insight. Brinson manages collective clients. There's Clint Black, Edwin McCain, Judith Hill. There's a long list of all the years of Brinson doing this. It's a big deal in Nashville, Tennessee.
Shucks.
And thank you, Clark, for helping me with all this, because by the way, folks, we do have Mr. Clark Mosley helping us too. He's in the back room helping make sure we don't blow up the speakers or something. So like we mentioned earlier, the tornadoes and stuff like that. Not only with the touring. How does this really affect? I mean, how do you think that people are going to be able to pay their bills? Yeah. That's the thing I want to know.
That's a great question. There's several looks at it right now. So, for instance, some acts that are stable, that have had some success. Most of our clients, Clint, Sarah Evans, Edwin. They're going to take care of our people. You have an obligation to be loyal to people. And our position right now is we're not canceling anything. We're rescheduling everything. and trying to keep everything in the calendar year 2020 because, let's just use Clint as an example. He still tours. We still do 70 to 75 shows a year. Does he need to do that? No. But he loves doing it because a lot of his band they played on Killing Time in 1989. He's had these same guys together since 1986. And, that's loyalty to each other. And he worries about them and he does a lot of this to take care of them.
Yeah.
And that's an obligation that is placed correctly because they have been loyal to him. They never stepped out. So many musicians, and listen, it's like this, I guess, in any career. People will leave for $1 more here or $1 more there and not think, wow, listen, this is about longevity. And so back to answer your question, there's going to be people that take care of their people the best they can. AEG, Live Nation, local venues who we were talking about, a minute ago, that you're forgetting about the hourly concession sales people, the ushers, the box office people, the production people, the people who do your parking.
It's a million variables.
There are people that are going to have to step up. I actually just got an email right before we sat down here. There's an organization in Nashville called Music Cares, and it is a nonprofit foundation that exists solely to take care of people in the music industry, not artists that fly around on jets and stuff like that, but young musicians or band members or bus drivers or truck drivers or whatever who are in a time of need.
Yes.
You can apply for aid, and there, as of this morning, $2 million had been pumped into it from ACM, CMA, different agencies.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And so people are going to lean heavy on Music Cares for a while. And I've seen it in action before this with people I know that have gotten sick, haven't been able to tour or had cancer.
That was my major concern with all this stuff. Like, man, they're telling us to stay home for a couple months. Well, what do we do? How do we pay for it all? I mean, what do we do? Yeah. And me personally, there's other things that I have my hands in, but not just playing music, but on the recording side and on the construction side. But there's a lot of people that don't have that. I have friends of mine that have already called me, and that's all they do is play. Yeah. And as I've done for years, and the bar scene or whatever, that's how we make our living. And with this being gone, I mean, some of these people don't even know what the hell else they can do. They don't know where do I go, and I just think it's crazy. I'm glad we've talked about it and everything.
But even in normalized times, that's still always a concern to me when people want to make a career out of this. And this is what they do. A lot of times my first question is, great, what else can you do? Yeah. And I'm not saying don't do this, but go into this aware of what the actual success rate is, which is low.
Very low.
And then honestly, what your potential success rate is if you are a sideman, which I think is a very, very noble calling to be a sideman. But if your name is not the one on the ticket, you got to think hard about it, because it is, this is not a demeaning statement at all, because I was in this position for a long time myself. It's almost like being a bartender, in that you are offering a service that's important, that makes people happy. That is a great thing to do in your 20s, and you make just enough money that you're okay. Yeah. But one day you're not 20, you're 50, and especially in the music world, a 50-year-old sideman is not nearly as employable as a 20-year-old sideman.
I saw you looking at me when you said that.
Yeah, I was looking. I was like, well, he's the exception.
Because he looks 20.
I got Spider-Man on stage with me all the time. I'm very happy when Charlie, especially when he gets all dolled up.
All my female friends go, your brother's how old? Or no, the other question is, now how much older are you than your brother?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, wow.
That's close. Well, as far as what you just said, because I did have a revelatory moment. You remember Sting when he went out on his own, and that Dream of the Blue Turtles tour? He had all these incredible musicians, Gerald Jones, Omar Hakim, Branford Marsalis, And so Miles Copeland told the story about, he goes, these guys, I love these guys, are great. He goes, but their managers would come up to me and go, well, what's the deal going to be, and how much is on the table? And he looked at every one of them and said, it's not your table, it's Sting's table.
Whoa.
If you don't show up, everybody still buys a ticket. If he doesn't show up, nobody buys a ticket.
True.
That's right.
That goes back to what you're saying. Yeah. And now that we're talking about this, and I'm reading all my questions once again. And Clark, thank you for doing this, because I would have been lost. These guys are pretty intimidating over here. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I want to ask y'all this, and y'all can both answer or whatever. But what do you think the next major trend is in the music industry? You've been doing this forever, Brinson, and Charlie. You've obviously seen this and done this a long time. What do you think? What do y'all?
Well, I'll go first, because you'll have the right answer. I've just got an idea. It's been interesting in some ways, and we see it maybe more here in Texas than other places. The big touring acts, the giant touring acts, are going to be there. It seems like always. Yeah. The secondary touring acts, maybe not. It's become more regionalized. There are guys that can make a good living playing Texas music in Texas. And I don't know if it's that way the rest of the country, but...
No, you're 100% right. And Texas has its own thing. Yeah. The Southeast has its own thing. We have an act, Corey Smith, who's actually not on the road anymore. But Corey, he was huge in the Southeast. Yeah. And, if, he played a college campus in the Southeast, anywhere, we sell it out. You go to the Northeast or the West Coast, we couldn't sell 8 tickets. But
see, that's so weird.
He was here at Floor's Country Store, and what did you do?
Yeah. You could have hunted deer in the parking lot, because there was, there's, I don't know, maybe 100 people.
Maybe. Yeah.
We're in Atlanta. We go to the Tabernacle and sell 2,400 seats literally in 5 minutes. So that's the only other regionalized area, I think. But Texas more so than anything, because Texans are the best. That's why. And music is so ingrained in the culture here, more so than anywhere else.
I've been playing now 24 years. I'm 38 years old. I started really young with a band that was already established. And when I went on my own, I was like 20, 21. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. Thank God I had my dad there to wipe my ass for me. But I saw this was the beginning for me. Guys like Charlie Robison, Robert O'Keefe, Pat Green had first came out. That was like 98 or something. That's what I thought was so cool about Texas country. Like, wow, these guys... There's 3,000 people at Floors at $20 or $25 a ticket for Pat Green, which back then was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I liked the fact that they wrote their songs, their band played on the record. It was recorded in Texas or in Austin, or it wasn't just all about Nashville. I fell in love with that.
Yeah.
Me being a musician, I know that there are certain things that are good and bad with that, but I'm starting to see in the scene now, and there's still a lot of diehards that write their own music and stuff, like I still try to do, but I'm seeing it become even a little more corporate, the Texas country thing, and with the music videos and the file sharing and everything that happens that makes this world kind of go around with music, with the internet. Do you think it's going to come back to that kind of grassroots kind of thing, or is it going to keep progressing into this? I mean, what do you
both.
think?
The answer is both, because there are a million different ways to consume music right now, and by music I mean content. It's not just, hey, we got this 3.5 minute song. Everything is about content. I've always thought that what people really want, besides the music, is a little peek behind the curtain. They just want to feel included in what you do. So, you take acts. We'll go again to a Corey Smith, who was never a radio guy. Yeah. But it was content.
That's
weekly.
My next question anyway, and I want you to build on that.
Sure.
It's because Corey Smith, I was going to ask you. You were saying he's big in the Southeast.
Yeah.
So I was going, well, how can he not be big in another area? Did radio mainly give him spins in this part of the world? But it's not. It's all like YouTube and just internet.
Yeah. And the term we use for Corey was he's a fan-made man. So he started playing solo acoustic shows in the Southeast. Anywhere there's an SEC school, he's a king.
Gotcha.
And he really built them and started selling CDs out of the trunk of his car. And then we just continued to build on that. And it started a series called Songsmith Weekly, where it's just him, the camera, playing new content on his YouTube channel, or doing behind the scenes things, or just it was something different every week. And so we really drove that, and that took the place of terrestrial radio for him. And terrestrial radio, love it or hate it, still is the biggest driver of big success, right? So none of the guys we talked about that are flying around on jets got there by not having terrestrial success. But the exciting part is everyone now has a distribution outlet. It's everyone has access.
It's democratized.
It is absolutely democratized. But then the challenge inherent in that is, okay, now everybody has it.
What do you do with it?
How do you stick out of that?
That was kind of always been I'm always asking these questions, because it's a thing for me. It's a really big deal. And I do this also with my music. Got a YouTube channel, got some professional videos out. What I've noticed is staying on top of it, man. Staying like, I think what a label could actually do for you is not only just record you and help you out and kind of bankroll the thing, but obviously keep you in line. I think that's what a lot of artists don't understand now. There's a time frame and there's a schedule you have to go by, because the rest of the world's not going to wait on you.
That's right.
And it is great that we could record a record this week and have it out by next week. I mean, but is that good or not? I mean, the question is, how do we put it out?
How's it delivered?
And who do we focus to promote this stuff to? I mean, to push this to, and I don't know.
Well, when you brought up the point of major labels, they are still valuable. They always will be. And believe me, those fuckers are making money right now. They are healthier than they've ever been. But here's the difference now. You go to pitch something to a major label, and this is no exaggeration. I've had this conversation 3 times in the last 4 months. Before they listen to music, they want to look at your social numbers. And, so the where it is now is labels don't want to build it. They want you to build it. They want to blow it up. So they're out of the building business, right? So you got to go and build your base, and then from there they can turn the heat up and help you blow it up. But all of it's changed. So
it's mainly up to the artist. Then
it's up to artists and management, and it's the good of it is management is, selfishly speaking, it is more important to the artist's career than ever, because we have taken on so many of the roles that labels traditionally handled. The bad of it is we've taken on all those roles, and that goes on our payroll and is taxing to our people.
Yeah, and that brings up what we're going to say here. And Charlie, I want you to say, to definitely chime in on this too. But like we're talking about artists, what is the biggest mistake that artists make? And I don't even know. I'm reading this question, and I don't even know if it even pertains to exactly what we're talking about. But in your opinion, what do you think? We can probably redo this. I guess what an artist should be doing or what they should not be doing. I think that our listeners would want to. Most of them are artists listening to this, so I don't know if that's in your opinion, and Charlie too. After all the years of you singing and playing with different bands and everything, what do you think an artist either should do or should not do?
Well, I'll start with that. Just after seeing it and living it firsthand, don't be an asshole. I mean, honestly,
advice.
To the people that play for you, the people that you work with, the club owners, or the waiters and waitresses. I mean, everybody. And because you can do 1,000 things right and do 2 things wrong, and it wrecks it all. And be kind, be thoughtful, respect other people that are involved in this business, because they're as much a part of your success as you are in some ways. And I'm not being flippant about that. I think it's true in any career. You can't leave a trail of broken bodies behind you and expect to have long-term success.
Right.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's a lot out there that I've never understood that either. And I've done a lot of shows with artists that I've even looked up to, and after I did the show, I didn't really look up to them anymore.
Yeah.
And that may not mean shit to them, I don't care. But, I'm not going to say any names, but there's a couple of guys that I really just, as songwriters, I just think that they're fantastic. And they're just, and I would go do these shows with these dudes, and I was just so turned off. I just really didn't listen to the music after that.
Yeah.
I know that sounds
I
kind of immature. I don't know, but I just was like, man, that guy's such a jerk. Yeah. I couldn't even say hi and take a picture with me. And, that was the reason I took the gig. It's not like an opening guy makes anything, makes a lot of money.
Not getting rich on that deal.
But that's 100% right. And again, we'll use Clint as an example because there are a lot of guys like him. Then we have an opening act, even if we're playing a small town and it's a local opener that the promoter won, and we don't, we screen them, but once they're on the show, they are a part of the show, and it is a show. So it's not Clint Black and his helper opening the show. It's like you're part of the show. And Clint still talks about when he started and he was opening for Alabama back in the day. And those guys made sure whoever their openers were, they were treated like co-headliners, and they've got everything, and they got the stage, and they got all the lights, they got all the PA, they got everything they needed. So that's the way. Wow. That's great. That's the way we treat it, and there are a lot of guys who are like that, and there are a lot of guys who are exactly the opposite. And it's your podcast, so I won't name names, but one fucking asshole from Bakersfield is all I'm going to say, who is one of my favorites of all times.
Who's not Buck Owens?
Who is not Buck Owens. So that leaves one other guy. I
think I might know who you're talking about.
But his, Charlie and I were talking about him on the way over here. Worst deserved reputation in the world because he lives to stomp on people for no particular reason. And
I've heard that.
Oh,
yeah. Great. I mean,
there's not. You want to counter somebody else who goes, oh no, that's not really true. What you hear is, oh yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
So and all that say, it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't, because the way I look at it, this is hard enough as it is, and your chances of getting to another level and even being on the radio, if you can get there, that's amazing. Yeah. You should be thankful, because the only reason you're really there is because of the fans. I mean, you wouldn't, if people didn't come to any of your shows, or no one liked you, or you just weren't good, you're just not going to get that opportunity. That's so. Right. It's like, hey man, the reason you're rich is because of all your fans and all the people that have gotten you here. Why don't you smile once in a while? Yeah.
Well, so it's even more existential than that. I'd read this thing not long ago about what's the true measure of happiness in life, right?
Yeah.
And psychologists had gone through this whole gamut of questions and a lot of surveys, and it got down to one thing, and the only one thing. It wasn't money. It wasn't family. It wasn't friends. The one thing that made everybody happy was their own ability to show gratitude.
Really?
Wow.
And if they didn't have that,
wow,
it shut off everything else in their life.
Amazing.
Wow. That's so...
One reason I've always enjoyed working with you is because you're grateful for everything and to everybody. That's really a meaningful thing, because you've been on the other end of that scale.
Oh, yeah.
But it's...
Many times.
So like I said, it's a larger metaphysical thing, but you can see it. If you're not fulfilled in your life, it trickles down to everything you're doing.
And that's amazing.
And honestly, I can go to bat a little bit for guys that kind of have a little bit of arrogance. I get it. I know maybe a lot of times these, whether you're tired, you've been traveling on a bus forever, maybe you just don't want to talk to anybody. I get that. But when it does occur, you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Well, it's never what you say, it's how you say it.
Done.
Right.
Done. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So anyway, this ends the philosophy lesson for the day.
I've been shitty a couple times, I have to say. I don't make a habit of it, but not to actual people. Maybe just acting like a jerk in general because I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah, but I'll bet you came back and apologized for it. That's the big difference.
Dude, that's one thing my dad would always tell me, and he was a musician for 35, 40 years, and he would always say, hey man, it doesn't matter if it's 5 people, if it's 500, it doesn't matter if you're playing a gig down, at a tiny bar, you're playing a stadium, you treat everybody, you say thank you, you know, and what else do you have if you don't have that? You don't have anything,
I read this, an article, and it was about Don Rickles, the comedian, and, he's around for 1,000 years and been playing Vegas since the 60s with Frank Sinatra, and it was in Variety, and it talked about, to this day, he finishes a show, the audience leaves, he has everybody that worked the show, the ticket takers, the ushers, everybody come in and line up, and he keeps a stack of like $20 bills, and he goes down the line and just hands everybody a $20 bill and thanks them.
That's amazing.
How great is that?
That is absolutely
and the fact
amazing.
That here we are in South Texas talking about that.
Yeah.
Not that he does it for that reason, but man, does that make an impression?
That's his thing.
Yeah.
I'd go to work for him, you know?
Yeah. But back to your original question, one other thought here. Mistakes people make or things they should do. Again, it goes, the biggest mistake is thinking somebody else is going to do it for you.
Okay.
Or no matter how good your music is, thinking that's all it takes. Because I cannot tell you, well, no, I don't have to tell you. You guys know better than anybody how many unbelievable musicians and songs are out there that nobody ever hears. Because it's not enough to cut through the clutter. You got to give it some sort of lift off so people can actually find your content. So you got to go and build content. YouTube is the number one way that music is consumed right now, which still blows my mind.
I love it.
But it's the number one way that music is consumed, and it's discovered.
It's weird, but I do love it because
I heard this woman come speak at Trinity one time about digital media and how it changed everything. So I think that was the title of the talk. But the second subtitle was, how many times do I have to buy the White Album?
Exactly.
Or Redheaded Stranger.
Redheaded Stranger. Yeah. That's happened a lot, you know. And now that it's like, so now we're basically leasing the music, I guess you'd say.
Sure.
You pay a $15 a month to whatever provider you have, and you can download whatever. Do you think that's cool?
You know what? It doesn't matter. It just is. Yeah. So here's, again, let me give you the positive flip side of it, is music has never been more discoverable than it is right now. So my kids are 16 and 19, and music is just music to them. It's not format driven. So, when they were young, they go on their playlist and they may listen to something off Willie and Family Live. And then they listen to something from Guns N' Roses next. And then they listen to, Pavarotti next. But it doesn't matter because they weren't genre induced. And so there's, we grew up and there was a stigma. You either liked country or you liked rock and roll. You didn't really like both. You did whatever. To them, music is just music. So while, yes,
awesome.
You got the days of, used to you tour to support selling albums. The only people are going to make money off selling albums anymore are the labels, off streaming albums.
Yes.
Or the labels. You got to look at music as a flyer for your live show. So all that being said, have a really good live show.
Yeah.
That's it's just like acts that at first, the last few years, when a lot of acts would freak out when, people are holding up video cameras and it all ends up on YouTube during live stuff. And they go, what are we going to do? Well, my advice is you better not suck.
Yeah.
So there you go. Have a good show.
That is true.
Wow. You made that point about your music not being enough, and you helped me understand this a few years ago. Kenny Chesney may be the best example of that.
Yeah.
Because his music's good and it's accessible, but the way he managed his career and his persona,
it's a lifestyle.
It really is. And that has carried him through probably more or as much as the music in some ways, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the music is, to your point, he'll be the first to say he's not the greatest singer out there. He's had the luxury of picking some really good songs because he writes with great writers, and whether it's your cup of tea or not, he has built. I mean, he honestly has out Jimmy Buffetted Jimmy Buffett. He stole,
which is amazing.
Yeah, he took a perfect cocktail of Tim McGraw and Jimmy Buffett and made this persona, and whether it's your cup of tea or not, whatever.
And that's when he really, really blew up. I was a Chesney fan from the beginning when he was, really country, and he's always, of course, country. But when that no shoes, no shirt stuff got, I guess that was 2000 maybe or something like that. I don't remember the exact year, but that's when I knew, like, this guy is selling everything out. He was able to just. He was headlining his own tour. I mean, before that, it was like he was doing concerts, but they were like smaller, Then it's like stepping from the Laird Auditorium into the Alamo Dome almost. Like overnight, it felt like for me.
Yeah.
And it was that one record where
and McGraw took him under his wing, put him on his tour, opened the shows, and during the course of that tour, I forget what year it was, Chesney really overtook McGraw. But they, rode the tour out with Chesney opening for him. And he'll tell you, he sort of, I won't say ripped off, but he took a lot of what the swagger that McGraw had. And
I think in the business it's called an homage.
It is, yes. That is the complimentary term.
That's what we call it. You had a great story you told me about what Kenny Chesney did with program directors. Like how he built relationships with program directors.
Oh, this guy. All right. So Chesney, again, I've never seen anybody that worked program directors. I don't mean, worked with a capital W, like he hustled them. He kept, he would go and visit radio stations. He kept a log of everybody he talked to, what they talked about. If they talked about their kids, he made a note of their kids, their wives, if he knew their birth dates. And daily, he runs his notes. And he would make calls and go, oh, hey, it's your daughter's birthday tomorrow, whatever. Hey, congratulations on this. This is before he was really big. And I mean, that's a great business tactic, but he kept it up even when he didn't have to. And then when he could afford it, then instead of doing that, he would still do that, but then fly guys to his island, to his place in the Bahamas. And, he is always taking care of those that took care of him.
I noticed Randy Curl, he's been over here quite a few times. And
he's a good guy.
He's so cool, and he's got some awesome stories about Kenny. Really? And I always wondered, like, it's like maybe the 10 times maybe that he's been over here, but at least half of those times we start talking like we're doing now, and something about Kenny Chesney will just pop in his head and start talking about it. That's got to be what it is.
Yeah, he has developed the art of the personal relationship, and you, to this day, if you talk to him, who's the program director at KJ in San Antonio or whatever, he can tell you who the program director is, and probably even the music director.
That's very smart.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would. I'm just thinking about that. I don't know if I'd be good at that or not.
You would. It's not. It's a learned thing. It's a memory trick, and it's what you do when you look at that as part of your job as much as you're a great singer, you're a great guitar player, but you have to work at that. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of guitar players, I'm looking at my list here again, and you've been playing guitar for a lot of years. Who's your guy? Who's the guy you look up to? Like, for real? Like, who's your favorite guitar player? I mean, that's a crazy question.
Honestly, I think my favorite guitar player ever is Roy Nichols. He used to play for Merle Haggard.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
that guy. I mean, he. There were so many great. Jimmy Olander, Jimmy Olander. It's a different deal. Jimmy O made that band. It's a really good band,
of course.
But his sound, there are so many great ones. Pete Anderson. We're talking about Pete earlier today.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, is he the greatest technical player in the world? No, but man, I love the guys that know how to serve the song. And we used to manage back in the early 2000s, managed Brad Paisley, and this is nothing I haven't said repeatedly to his face. Great player, one of my least favorite because he just wants to stomp all over and play too much. And again, that's his thing. Again, I'm not talking behind his back. It's a joke. Yeah. But guys who understand, where they sit in the song and what you're there for, how you serve the song and contribute to what you're doing. I mean, Grady Martin and Jody Payne that play with Willie Nelson.
When did you come to that realization as a player? That any particular time when you were overplaying, you listened back and thought, "Oh man."
I think it's because so much of what we listen to from, the William Family Live album was a groundbreaking thing for us, and the way the songs are there, and then started listening to the early Merle Haggard stuff to listening to the Juke Jumpers in Fort Worth, and Sumter Bruton, and then his brother Stephen Bruton, who played for Bonnie Raitt and everybody else. It was just a style and I always felt like that was not just a Texas thing, but a lot of Texas guys sort of got that innately. They knew it wasn't about them. It was like, I'm here to play a role that I'm a cast member.
The other day we were talking about that. A buddy of mine, he's in here all the time as well, and we were talking in the shop, and he's like, he goes, "Hey man, I don't think anybody gives a shit anymore about guitar players, man." And when he said that, it kind of really, because we're learning all this 80s and 90s rock for this one show we do every week at the Horse, and I'm learning licks, and I'm going back and making charts, and I'm like, God dang, this was hard. And finally, I just told myself, just get through the song.
Yeah.
Don't try to hit every single note, because, that's the goal.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're not used to it. But he has a point. What do you think about that comment? What do y'all think about?
I think it's changed. I mean, honestly, some of the, I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. I had pounded into my head for so many years. You get tired of it. I want to hear something we listened to this band that Jefferson turned me onto called the Bahamas. There's barely any guitar in it at all.
Yeah.
And when it is, it's like that David Ryan Harris. It's just the, rhythm stuff in the background. I love that. It opens up the song in a different way. It doesn't feel like somebody pulled, the cord on a Husqvarna on a chainsaw. And I got to get to listen to that.
It has to make sense, right? It has to make, to me, I mean, and that's why I like guitar players too, that sound, when you first hear them, you mentioned Jimmy O. When you first hear any song from Diamond Rio, whether you know who it is or not, when you hear that guy playing, you know, oh, that's Jimmy O.
Yeah, no question.
You just know the tone, and
it's distinctive. And you toured with him. His live playing was
guy.
It's exactly like the record. I mean, he does the work. His rig is not overly complicated, but when we would tour, he had his 2 amps, off stage.
Yeah.
And Mike, so we would do our show, and then I would just pull up a chair in front of his amp sitting off stage and just listen to him play, and thinking, man, I got to get into management.
Yeah, I need to not play guitar anymore.
Yes.
He has switched to the Kemper, by the way.
Did he go to the Kemper? Yeah.
Profiled his own stuff.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, we opened for them a few years ago at the Blue Bonnet, and I've never seen Diamond Rio, and I was really, really excited. And one, he was a super nice guy.
Oh, he's the best.
He's a super, super nice guy, and he looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost looks younger than he did when he was hot in the 90s.
He's in better shape.
Yeah.
He looks great.
Exactly.
And sure enough, man, I think he was using, I think he had a couple matchless amps maybe.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But they weren't, they were not on the stage. In fact, they were behind the stage, and he had covers over them.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, being an engineer, I thought that was smart. But I'm going, really? I mean, there's 3,000 people here. Just let it go. And that's not his thing, though. It's very smart player.
Yeah, and, he is. And he's meticulous about their sound and their mix. And that's obviously, as you know, it's the best way to do it. Everything's controlled. And he can still play at the volume he wants.
They were, I was fortunate to open the show for Blackhawk this last week, and they still sound unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Diamond Rio, man, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard a band, especially at their age, how long they've been doing it, sound that perfect. Harmonies were flawless, and they used a couple of tricks, some stupid tricks that they had a couple tracks going, which is smart.
Hey, they're available to you. Why not use the technology?
I was talking to, is it Gene? Is it Gene Johnson, right?
Yeah,
He's playing mandolin. We got through playing, and he was so nice, man. He's like, man, you guys sound amazing, and you play great guitar. And I felt like so awesome after talking to him. And he told us, he goes, we sing. We're singing exactly the way we always have, and we have our own voice on a track.
Yeah.
So when we're doing this, it sounds like sounds like Diamond Rio for sure, but it's just bigger.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a little support. And I've always wanted to do that. I mean, that's amazing. It's
very cool.
A lot of people, to your point, it's worth saying they are the best guys all the way across the board.
They were so nice.
And they don't tolerate anyone in their organization not being a nice guy. It does. This game's hard enough as it is. Why complicate it anymore?
We were I was a little bit intimidated. I was a little bit scared, actually, because this was one of my first shows where I was in charge. They had hired me to bring out the production and everything, and I had a couple other moving parts, that I had to. So not only are we playing my band, but I'm basically in charge of that other end, and I was really nervous.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, these guys are going to eat my lunch, man. I'm a lot younger. I've never really done a show this big, and I was freaking out. But no, they made it feel like nothing. Like, oh, it's fine. It's awesome. Anyway.
They've done it so many times. They've seen every type of setup there is. They know how to navigate whatever's put in front of them.
And that's we've already answered our own question, but the next question on here is like, in your opinion, guys, what makes a band? What is it just the songs? Is it the person? I think it's the personalities, my opinion, but
yeah, I think you've played in bands with great players. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Yeah. I can't define what that is. There has to be an emotional connection to me with somebody to really get the most out of it. Some of it's time. You play with somebody for a long time, you know what they're going to do, but you still have to be connected to them. And the notes are just the notes.
Yeah.
Everybody can play them at some level, right?
Yeah, it's and that's what Scott Zucknick was saying. He's like, I'd rather play in a band with a guitar player that's a really nice guy.
1,000%.
You know, and he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's probably referring to me because he's telling me this.
I don't think it's directed at you.
But he's even said like, I've played with some really amazing players that can just do anything. And they're jerks.
Yeah.
I mean, the hang is before the talent. You know, how good is the hang? Yeah. You know, and
because that carries over. I mean, listen, music is an emotion. You know, it's just another emotional outlet. And if you know, unless you're Fleetwood Mac, who they built strife and strain into their music, and that helped them emote. Other than that, if you're not cohesive, I mean, shit, you heard it at the end with the Beatles when they were strained. The music, you could hear the strain in the music. But if you sort of have a similar vision, you understand why you're there, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier. And you're there to serve the song, which that's the problem when you have super groups. You know, they're technically fun to listen to for a little bit, but they ain't there, you know, for each other.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly. And that's the whole deal. I mean, it's weird.
You go in Nashville. There's, as you know, you guys have been there 100 times. There's live music in every bar, lounge, funeral home, whatever. There's live music everywhere. And a lot of times you get the best players in the world, like the super players, the A-team, studio guys, they'll play out, and you go, and technically it's fun to listen to, but after about an hour you need a fucking nap, because it's like, okay, everybody was there playing for themselves, and it was really cool, and I'm glad I heard it once. You know, but it's not something I'm going to listen to over and over and over and over, because it doesn't emote.
Yeah, I just thought of this as we were talking about it. Think about a band like Green Day. Individually, okay. Yeah. Together, it's fabulous. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, yeah.
You know what? Think about the Foo Fighters. It's, again, really, really good players, but they all know why they're there, and every part is right and reasonable. So I can listen to them all day long, because you can hear that. Also, you can hear that they're all pulling the wagon the same direction. And that doesn't happen as often as you would think.
Well, Brinson has signed a new band called Everett, who I think is the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's two guys that have been playing together. They're from Kentucky and have been playing together 13 years, and they're phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. They're funny as shit. The name Everett came from Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
I was wondering.
They're good friends with Dan Tyminski. So if you go on their YouTube channel, there's stuff with them sitting around drinking whiskey with Dan Tyminski playing. And,
that is so cool.
But they understand why they're there. And we just came out of the studio with Luke Laird. We were in the studio with them. They're on Broken Bow Records, and Luke. You know, for anybody who doesn't know, he's one of the most prolific producers and songwriters right now. He produces Miranda and Carrie and writes hits and everything. And because their music makes so much sense, this record is the first record he's ever produced that he doesn't have a cut on. Because at first when we started talking about Luke, it's like, man, he's a great guy, but he's going to want to probably jam a few things on you. And he listened to the body of work and goes, you don't need me. I'll just produce this and stay out of your way.
So that's great.
So to Charlie's point, I mean, that's exactly right. They know
they're that good.
They're that good, and it's two guys, but it's a band. You know, you see them live, it's just 4 pieces, but it's a band.
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
Yeah. That's amazing.
You know, one thing I will say is we talk a lot about the traffic out there, and is it difficult to become successful? Yeah, but it's always been difficult. The opportunity is always going to be there. Again, live music's always going to exist. People are going to love it. And if that's what you want to do, contrary to a lot of opinions, I think the opportunities now are greater than ever, because when you were solely, as a musician, solely dependent on terrestrial radio, man, that's going through the eye of the needle, right? You got one way to go about it. But the fact that everybody has a chance at an outlet, that there's so much money, whether it's about money or not, there's so much opportunity in regional success. The two things that people need to do the most is, if you're going to do it, but be aware and recognize when you think the window is closed, because it's don't get in too early and don't stay too late. And it's the people that get broken are the ones that stay too late. And it's not in the cards for everybody, but just be aware of what you're doing, or don't get yourself hurt by hanging on too long, because so many people do.
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of this deal here. Any advice for bands? And, artist management and like what you can do. That sums it all up. Like, in like just to kind of wrap it all up. Like, do you think that radio? Do you think that YouTube is basically more popular than radio now, in your opinion?
Oh yeah, I mean, just sheer numbers. It is the viewership is greater. Terrestrial radio, the impact is greater, but it's more. It's definitely more isolated, but the impact is greater. Listen, there's all kinds of crazy shit going on. Last year, in 2019, it was the first year since 1986 that vinyl outsold CDs.
What is wrong with the world?
Dude, what? I didn't really.
Yeah, but you know why? Here's the devil's in the details and that shit. So you hear this and everybody goes crazy and goes, "Oh, it's got to be all vinyl." Well, no. If you dig down deeper into the data, that is technically true. 85% of those sales were in hip hop, which still sells, right?
Okay. Oh, the whole
Which is great. That's fantastic, kids. Like, where do you get a record player? But okay, and for our people, they aren't getting record players. They still have record players.
Yeah.
So, but it's just you have to be aware. And
crazy.
The other advice, you talked about management companies and do you want to be a manager? Do you want to, what role do you want to play? And being a manager sounds like a good idea, but everybody wants to be a bull rider until they open that fucking gate, right? So you gotta be prepared because it gets a little bumpy, and there's a fine line between being a manager and a damager, and you have an obligation as a manager to, if you don't know what you're doing, figure out what you're doing really fast because you can hurt your people.
That's what I've always wondered. Yeah.
Well, I do have one last question. I mean, sure. You can edit this out if you want, but
no.
A lot of the guys that will listen to this are working musicians.
Yeah.
It's what we do. And so there's one thing that you had happen to you that it's almost impossible for somebody like me and Nick to even fathom. Mm-hmm. You went from Southern Wind, where you played 260 nights a year and you're 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it was, to Brian White, who you're playing 300 nights a year and doing 14 songs.
Yeah.
Now, is that the worst thing or the best thing that ever happened to you?
It ended up being the
good question.
That is a great question. It ended up being the best thing, and I'll tell you why. So, like everybody else, when you're playing in bands, you're doing 5 sets a night, 45 on, 15 off, or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. So then as Charlie said, I go to playing for Brian, where suddenly you're playing 14 songs if we're the headliner in an arena. But for the first couple of years, we're the opener where we're playing 30 minutes, which I'm like,
I just plugged it in.
I usually spend more time changing batteries in my battery pack, right? So
that sucked.
And it felt like stealing. But what happened for me is I realized that when you are a sideman for an act like that, you work exactly 75 minutes a day. Yeah. And I thought, I'm going to lose my fucking mind out here. So our tour manager at the time, he was one of the greatest guys ever. He ended up leaving and going somewhere else. And he's been Brad Paisley's production manager forever now. But there was suddenly, we needed a tour manager. I'm like, I can do that too. I'll save us a job, I'll save us half a salary.
That's how it started.
I'll save us a space on the bunk. A bunk on the bus. So that's what helped me. Actually, it was Steve Warner's wife, Karen, who suggested it, because Steve's steel player, Alan, has always been his tour manager too.
Yeah.
And so I just became the tour manager. So that helped me make that step over into management. So to your point, it ended up being the best thing ever. Yeah. But, and also, Charlie and I've talked about this. We'd be on the bus at night, and all the other guys had, we'd finish the show and we're rolling down the road. Guys have guitars out and they're practicing and doing stuff. And I go, what are you doing that for? We play the same 14 fucking songs every night.
I know.
You don't get paid any extra. And I'm like, oh, wait. They love it. That's why they're doing it.
Oh, you actually enjoy it.
Oh, it's a profit deal. Oh. So that was a tell that maybe it was time to go ahead and make that move.
Well, that's so cool. Well, I am so glad that you were able to stop by today and do this. When Charlie first told me you were coming to town, I was like, here we go.
Oh, man, thanks for thinking I have anything to say that anybody want to hear.
No, it's I'm telling you, man, it's a lot of stuff that we down here in South Texas, we don't, it's good to have an outside perspective from someone who especially is in the city where the major in Nashville. It's just it's a thing, and it's always been intriguing for me as well. I've never had the opportunity to sit down with someone that has been with so many popular artists and actually making these decisions and working these big kind of things. And I have a whole new outlook on it too. I mean, it kind of gets me excited because it's just great. I mean, and I am kind of glad that the music is going in the direction that it is, but like you said earlier, it is difficult. You kind of make your own destiny, really, basically, as an artist now.
Sure. But you have the opportunity if you so choose.
Yeah, exactly. So, Charlie, thank you, too.
My pleasure.
For having Brinson come by and for doing this with us. We need to do this again when you come back in town, if you don't mind, because this was a lot of fun.
I'll bring the Purell.
Yeah, please, yes, bring the Purell. Yeah. Viewers, thank you so much. We're going to sign off. Thank you for tuning into the BandCave podcast. My name's Nick Lawrence. Again, Brinson, Strickland, thank you. Charlie, we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, Nick.
Ooh, me like BandCave.